The cathedral bells echoed through the stone walls as Sofia Montenegro walked down the aisle, her white dress trailing behind her like chains of silk. At 22, she should have been walking toward her dreams, but instead, she felt like a lamb being led to slaughter. The man waiting at the altar was a stranger, Gabriel Romano, tech billionaire whose empire stretched across 3 continents. Her hands trembled as she clutched the bouquet of white roses, their thorns hidden beneath perfect petals. Just like this marriage, beautiful on the surface, but painful underneath. The guests watched with curiosity rather than joy. Most of them business associates and society figures who had come to witness this union of convenience. Sofia's Aunt Carmen sat in the front row, her satisfied smile revealing the truth behind this arrangement. Carmen had orchestrated this marriage like a business deal, trading her orphaned niece for a substantial sum and social connections that would elevate the Montenegro's family name. The stranger at the altar, Gabriel Romano, stood at the altar with the bearing of a man accustomed to command. At 35, his dark hair showed silver threads at the temples, and his gray eyes held secrets that seemed carved from stone. His tailored black suit fit him perfectly, but there was no warmth in his posture, no anticipation of a groom about to marry the woman he loved. When Sofia reached the altar, their eyes met for the first time. She saw intelligence there, and power, but also a carefully constructed wall that kept the world at bay. Gabriel saw a young woman with golden brown hair and eyes like warm honey, but her beauty was overshadowed by the fear she tried so hard to hide. The priest's words blended. Together in a meaningless drone, Gabriel spoke his vows with mechanical precision, while Sofia's voice barely rose above a whisper. When he placed the ring on her finger, his touch was gentle but distant, like someone handling fragile merchandise. The kiss that sealed their union was brief and formal, more like a business handshake than a romantic moment. As they turned to face the crowd, Sofia felt like an actress playing a role she had never auditioned for. Welcome to the Romano estate. The drive to Gabriel's estate passed and uncomfortable. Sofia stared out the window of the luxury car, watching the Spanish countryside blur past. The closer they got to her new home, the more her stomach churned with anxiety. The Romano estate was a masterpiece of modern architecture nestled in the hills outside Madrid. Glass and steel blended seamlessly with natural stone, creating a structure that was both imposing and beautiful. As their car pulled through the electronic gates, Sofia felt like she was entering a different world entirely. Alina Vasquez, the head housekeeper, waited at the front entrance. She was a woman in her 50s, with kind eyes and graying hair pulled back in a neat bun. Unlike her new husband, Elena's smile was genuine and welcoming. "Welcome home, Signora Romano," Elena said warmly, though Sofia noticed how the title felt foreign on her tongue. Gabriel stepped out of the car and straightened his tie. "Alina will show you to your rooms," he said to Sofia without looking at her directly. "I have some calls to make." The cold reception, the interior of the house was as impressive as its exterior. Marble floors reflected crystal chandeliers and priceless artwork adorned the walls. But despite its beauty, the house felt more like a museum than a home, pristine, untouchable, and emotionally cold. Alina led Sofia through hallways lined with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered breathtaking views of the surrounding hills. "The master bedroom is here," Alina explained, opening a door to reveal a spacious suite with its own sitting area and terrace. "And where does Gabriel sleep?" Sofia asked, her cheeks burning with embarrassment at the question. Elena's expression softened with understanding. "Senator Romano has his own suite at the other end of the hall. He thought you might appreciate your privacy while you adjust to your new life here." The relief Sofia felt was mixed with confusion. Most new husbands would expect to share a bedroom with their wives, but Gabriel seemed determined to maintain distance between them. Dinner for strangers that evening, Sofia changed into a simple blue dress and made her way to the dining room. The table was set for 2, but Gabriel was already seated, reading documents while he ate. Looked up when she entered but didn't speak. The meal passed with only the sound of silverware against china. Sofia tried to eat, but her appetite had vanished. Finally, she gathered the courage to break the silence. "The house is beautiful," she said softly. "Thank you," Gabriel replied without looking up from his papers. "Have you lived here long?" Timmy did look at her, and something flickered in his gray eyes. 5 years, he said curtly, then returned to his documents. Sophia felt dismissed. Like a child who had interrupted important adult business, she finished her meal in silence, feeling more alone than she had ever felt in her life. The forbidden room. Unable to sleep, Sophia wandered the halls of her new home. The house was quiet except for the soft hum of air conditioning and the distant sound of Gabriel's voice from his office, speaking in rapid Spanish on what sounded like a business call. As she explored, she discovered a room at the end of a hallway. That was different from all the others. The door was slightly ajar, and soft moonlight spilled out into the corridor. Curiosity overcame caution, and she pushed the door open. The room took her breath away. It was a music room, with a grand piano as its centerpiece. Sheet music was scattered across the piano bench, and family photos lined the mantelpiece. It was the portrait above the fireplace that made Sophia's heart stop. The woman in the painting was breathtakingly beautiful. With dark hair and eyes that sparkled with life and laughter, she wore a simple white dress and held a single red rose. At the bottom of the frame was a small plaque, Isabella Romano, beloved wife, 1985 to 2018. The ghost of the past. Sophia approached the piano slowly, as if she were in a sacred space. The sheet music was for classical pieces, Chopin, Debussy, pieces that required skill and passion to play properly. Dust had settled on the keys, suggesting no one had played in years. She touched one key gently, and the single note seemed to echo through the room like a cry of loneliness. Without thinking, she began to play a simple melody her mother had taught her years ago. Before the accident that had left her an orphan, the music flowed from her fingers, filling the empty room with warmth and life. For the first time since arriving at the estate, Sophia felt like herself again. The melody was bittersweet, full of longing and hope in equal measure. She was so lost in the music that she didn't hear footsteps in the hallway. When she finally looked up, Gabriel was standing in the doorway, his face pale and his eyes wide with shock. Unexpected connection. I'm sorry. Duh. Sophia said quickly, pulling her hands away from the keys as if they had burned her. I couldn't sleep, and I found this room. I didn't mean to intrude. Gabriel stepped into the room slowly, his eyes moving from Sophia to the portrait of Isabella and back again. She played, he said quietly. Every morning, it was how she started her day. The pain in his voice was unmistakable, and suddenly Sophia understood. This wasn't just Gabriel's first marriage, it was his great love, tragically cut short. Issue was not a wife to him but a replacement, a pale substitute for the woman he had truly loved. She was beautiful, Sophia said softly, looking up at the portrait. Gabriel's jaw tightened. She was everything, he said, then caught himself. As if he had revealed too much, they stood in awkward silence, the weight of unspoken truths hanging between them. Finally, Gabriel spoke again. You play well. Where did you learn? My mother taught me, before she died. Music was everything to our family. Sophia's voice was barely above a whisper. The wedding night, Gabriel looked at her for a long moment. And for the first time, she saw something other than cold distance in his eyes. I should let you get some rest, he said finally. Tomorrow will be a long day. As they walked back toward their respective bedrooms, the silence between them felt different somehow, less hostile, though still filled with uncertainty. At her door, Gabriel paused. Sophia, he said, and hearing her name from his lips sent an unexpected shiver through her. Yes, this arrangement, he gestured vaguely between them. It's not what either of us would have chosen, but we can try to make it bearable for both of us. It wasn't a declaration of love, but it was the first acknowledgement that she was more than just a business transaction. I'd like that, she said softly. Gabriel nodded and turned to leave, but then stopped. The music room, he said without turning around. You can use it whenever you want. Music should be shared, not locked away. As Sophia closed her bedroom door, she leaned against it and let out a shaky breath. She was married to a man who was still in love with a ghost, in a house full of memories that weren't hers. But for the first time since this nightmare began, she felt a small spark of hope. Through her window, she could see the lights of Madrid twinkling in the distance. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new revelations about the complex man she had married. But tonight, she had found a connection, however small, with the stranger who was now her husband. As she finally drifted off to sleep, Sophia couldn't shake the feeling that her life was about to change in ways she never could have imagined. The scared girl who had walked down the aisle that morning was already beginning to fade, replaced by someone stronger. Someone who refused to be just another beautiful object in Gabriel Romano's carefully controlled world. Sophia woke to sunlight streaming through her bedroom windows and the distant sound of classical music drifting through the house. For a moment, she forgot where she was, but reality came rushing back as she remembered the events of the previous day.
Ow.
She was married, living in a stranger's house, trying to find her place in a world that felt nothing like home. After dressing, in a simple yellow sundress, she followed the music to its source. In the breakfast room, she found Gabriel seated at a glass table, reading the morning paper while soft piano concertos played from hidden speakers. He looked up when she entered, and she noticed his eyes linger on her face longer than usual. "Morning," he said, folding his newspaper. "I hope you slept well." "Better than expected," Sophia replied honestly, taking the seat across from him. Alina appeared almost immediately with fresh coffee and warm pastries, her motherly presence already a comfort in this strange new life. Gabriel studied her over his coffee cup. "I've been thinking about what you said last night about your family and music. Tell me more about them." The question surprised her. She had expected him to maintain the cold distance from yesterday, but something had shifted. "My parents were musicians," she began carefully. "Papa played violin in the Madrid Symphony and Mama taught piano at the conservatory. They met during a performance of Romeo and Juliet." A small smile touched Gabriel's lips. A romantic beginning, very romantic. They used to say that music brought them together and kept them together through everything. Sophia's voice grew softer. "When they died in the car accident, the music died with them. At least, that's how it felt." Gabriel set down his cup, his expression growing serious. "And your Aunt Carmen took you in?" "You took me in, yes, but not out of love." The bitterness in Sophia's voice was unmistakable. "Carmen saw an opportunity. An orphan niece with a small inheritance and no one to protect her interests." The business empire. After breakfast, Gabriel surprised Sophia by inviting her to visit his office. The Romano Technologies headquarters occupied an entire glass tower in the heart of Madrid's business district. As they rode the elevator to the top floor, Gabriel explained his work. "We develop security software for governments and corporations worldwide," he said. "It started as a way to protect people from digital threats, but it's grown into something much larger." His office was a study in controlled power. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of Madrid, while multiple screens displayed real-time data from markets around the globe. Sophia was impressed by the scope of his operation, but she also sensed something else beneath his professional success. "You built all this after Isabella died?" she observed quietly. Gabriel's hands stilled on his keyboard. "Work became my escape. When you lose someone you love completely, you need something to fill the emptiness, or it will destroy you." It was the most honest thing he had said to her since their wedding. And Sophia felt another small bridge building between them, an unwelcome visitor there. Moment of connection was interrupted by Gabriel's assistant announcing an unexpected visitor. The office door opened, and a stunning woman in her early 30s swept in without invitation. She had platinum blonde hair, ice blue eyes, and moved with the confidence of someone accustomed to getting whatever she wanted. "Gabriel, darling," the woman purred in accented English. "I heard the most interesting news about your recent wedding." Gabriel's entire demeanor changed, becoming cold and guarded. "Natasha, this is unexpected, is it? I would have thought you'd call me yourself with such important news." Natasha's eyes found Sophia, and her smile turned predatory. "You must be the little wife I've been hearing so much about." Sophia felt her cheeks burn under Natasha's scrutiny, but she held her ground. "Sophia Romano," she said, extending her hand with as much dignity as she could manage. "Natasha Volkov," the woman replied, barely touching Sophia's fingers. "Gabriel and I are old friends. Very old, very close friends." The tension in the room was suffocating. Gabriel stepped closer to Sophia, and she noticed how his jaw tightened with controlled anger. "Natasha, what do you want?" Can't I congratulate an old lover on his marriage?" Natasha's voice dripped with false sweetness. "Though I must say, the timing is curious. So soon after our last evening together in Paris." The truth about Paris, the words hit Sophia like a physical blow. Gabriel had been with this woman recently, perhaps while their marriage was already being arranged. She felt naive and foolish for beginning to believe there might be something real developing between them. "That's enough," Gabriel said firmly. "Sophia, would you mind waiting in the reception area? I need to speak with Natasha privately." The dismissal stung, but Sophia lifted her chin and walked out with as much grace as she could muster. Through the glass walls of Gabriel's office, she could see him and Natasha in heated discussion, though she couldn't hear the words. 20 minutes later, Natasha emerged, looking satisfied like a cat who had found the cream. She paused beside Sophia's chair. "A word of advice, dear," she said quietly. "Gabriel is a complicated man with expensive tastes. Don't mistake a business arrangement for something more meaningful. You'll only hurt yourself." Gabriel's confession, the ride home, was silent and tense. Sophia stared out the window while Gabriel made business calls, both of them avoiding the conversation that needed to happen. It wasn't until they were back at the estate, sitting in his study with the door closed, that Gabriel finally spoke. "What Natasha implied about Paris," he began, then stopped, running his hands through his dark hair. "I need you to understand the context." "You don't owe me explanations," Sophia said quietly. "This isn't a real marriage, isn't it?" Gabriel's gray eyes searched her face. "'Cause it's starting to feel real to me." The admission hung between them like a bridge neither was sure they should cross. Sophia felt her heart racing, but she forced herself to remain calm. "Tell me about Paris." Gabriel poured himself a scotch and offered one to Sophia, who shook her head. 6 months ago, I was still lost in grief. Isabella had been dead for 2 years, but I was no closer to moving on. Natasha and I had a brief relationship years ago. Before the first met Isabella, she contacted me, said she was concerned about me. "And you went to Paris with her? For a weekend?" "Yes." "But nothing happened, Sophia." "Not what she implied." I realized very quickly that I was trying to fill a void with someone who reminded me of everything I wasn't ready to face. Sophia studied his face, looking for signs of deception. Instead, she saw vulnerability in something that might have been regret. "The marriage arrangement came up a month later," Gabriel continued. "My board of directors had been pressing me to settle down, said it would be good for the company's image. When your aunt approached my lawyers with the proposal, it seemed like a practical solution. The business conspiracy, but there's something else," Gabriel said, his voice growing darker. "Something I didn't tell you yesterday. The pressure, too. Mary wasn't just about image. There's a hostile takeover attempt brewing, led by my former business partner, Roberto Santos." Sophia leaned forward, intrigued despite herself. "What kind of takeover?" "Roberto believes that if he can prove I'm unstable or unreliable, he can convince my shareholders to sell to his consortium. A recent marriage to a respectable young woman was supposed to counter that narrative. So I'm not just a wife," Sophia said slowly. "I'm a prop in your corporate drama." Gabriel set down his glass and looked directly into her eyes. "That's how it started, yes. But that's not how I feel about it now." Before Sophia could respond, Elena knocked on the door. "Sinar Gabriel, there's a problem. Roberto Santos is at the front gate with several men. He's demanding to speak with you." Standing her ground through the study window, they could see a group of expensive cars parked outside the estate's gates. Roberto Santos stood beside a black Mercedes. A tall man with silver hair and an arrogant bearing that reminded Sophia unpleasantly of her Aunt Carmen. "He can't legally enter without permission," Gabriel said, reaching for his phone to call security. "Wait," Sophia said, surprising herself with the firmness in her voice. "Let me talk to him." Gabriel stared at her in amazement. "Absolutely not. You don't understand how dangerous he can be." "I understand perfectly." And Sophia stood up, smoothing her dress with steady hands. "I've dealt with people like him my entire life. People who think they can intimidate and manipulate others for their own gain." Without waiting for Gabriel's permission, she walked to the front door and activated the intercom system. "Sinar Santos, this is Sophia Romano. My husband is in an important business meeting, but I'm happy to speak with you." Roberto's voice crackled through the speaker, smooth and condescending. "Signora Romano, how delightful. I was hoping to meet the young woman who captured Gabriel's heart so quickly. What can I do for you, Sinar Santos?" "I wanted to welcome you to the family. Business, so to speak. To offer you some friendly advice about your husband's financial situation." Gabriel started toward the door, but Sophia held up a hand to stop him. She had found her strength, and she wasn't going to back down now. "The revelation, I appreciate your concern," Sophia said into the intercom, "but I'm quite satisfied with my husband's business practices. In fact, I've been reviewing his company's performance, and the growth has been remarkable." It was a bluff. She hadn't reviewed anything, but something in Roberto's silence told her she had hit a nerve. "Of course you're newlyweds," Roberto said finally. "You probably haven't had time to discuss the more challenging aspects of the, business. Perhaps we could meet for lunch soon, just the two of us." "That won't be necessary," Sophia replied firmly. "Gabriel and I share everything, including our concerns about people who might wish to harm his company." Gabriel was staring at her with undisguised admiration. This was not the frightened girl he had married yesterday, but a woman finding her power and using it to protect what mattered to her. "Well," Roberto said, his voice losing some of its smoothness, "perhaps another time. Give Gabriel my regards." After the cars pulled away, Gabriel turned to Sophia with something close to awe in his expression. "Where did that come from?" "I spent 5 years learning to handle bullies," Sophia said simply. "Carmen and her friends taught me that sometimes the best defense is to act like you know more than you actually do." Gabriel stepped closer to her, close enough that she could smell his cologne and see the flecks of green in his gray eyes. "Phew, we're protecting me," he said softly. "We're married," Sophia replied, though her heart was racing at his proximity. "That means we protect each other." The music room again that evening, Sophia found herself drawn back to Isabella's music room. She had been thinking about her conversation with Gabriel, about the way he had looked at her when she stood up to Roberto, about the growing connection she felt. Despite all the complications surrounding their marriage, she was playing a gentle nocturne. When Gabriel appeared in the doorway again, this time, instead of looking shocked or pained, he seemed peaceful. "May I join you?" he asked. Sophia nodded, sliding over on the piano bench to make room for him. Gabriel sat beside her, their shoulders touching as he placed his hands on the higher keys. "Isabella tried to teach me," he said quietly. "I was never very good at it, but she said music wasn't about perfection, it was about expression." Together, they played a simple duet, their hands occasionally brushing as they reached for the same keys. The music they created was imperfect but beautiful. Like their marriage itself, unexpected, complicated, but somehow right. When the last notes faded away, they sat in comfortable silence. Gabriel turned to look at Sophia, and she saw something new in his eyes, not the distant politeness of their first meeting or the guarded pain he showed when speaking of Isabella, but genuine warmth. "Sophia," he said quietly, "I want you to know that whatever happens with the business situation, you're safe here. This is your home now, and I will never let anyone hurt you, even Natasha," Sophia asked, trying to keep her voice light. Gabriel's hand covered hers on the piano keys. "Especially Natasha. She represents a part of my past that I'm ready to leave behind." As they sat together in the moonlit music room, surrounded by memories of love and loss, Sophia felt something shifting inside her chest. It might have started as an arranged marriage, but what was growing between them was becoming something entirely different, something that might, with time and trust, become real love. The scared girl who had walked down the aisle yesterday was disappearing, replaced by a woman who was learning to fight for what she wanted. And what she wanted, she was beginning to realize, was the complicated, damaged, but fundamentally good man sitting beside her. 3 weeks into their marriage, life at the Romano estate had settled into an unexpected rhythm. Sophia had transformed from a timid bride into a confident partner, working alongside Gabriel to strengthen his business against Roberto's threats. She spent her mornings learning about Romano technologies and her evenings in the music room, where Gabriel had begun joining her regularly for their improvised duets. The change in both of them was remarkable. Gabriel smiled more often, and the haunted look that had shadowed his eyes since Isabella's death was beginning to fade. Sophia had found her voice in every sense. She spoke up in business meetings, offered insightful suggestions, and had even convinced Gabriel to implement a new employee assistance program. But their growing happiness was about to face its greatest test. Detective Martinez arrived on a rainy Thursday morning with news that would shake the foundation of everything they had built. A stocky man with graying mustache and kind eyes, he had been investigating financial irregularities in several Madrid companies. "Senor Romano, we've discovered something disturbing about your wife's family," he said, settling into the leather chair across from Gabriel's desk. Sophia sat beside her husband, her hand instinctively finding his. "What kind of something?" Gabriel asked, though his voice suggested he already suspected the answer wouldn't be pleasant. "Your Aunt Carmen has been working with Roberto Santos for months," Detective Martinez told Sophia directly. "The marriage arrangement wasn't her idea, it was his. He planned to use your marriage to get close to Gabriel's business operations." Betrayal unveiled. Sophia felt the blood drain from her face. "You're saying Carmen sold me to Roberto instead of Gabriel?" "In a sense, yes. Roberto paid Carmen a substantial sum to arrange the marriage, believing he could use you to spy on your husband or create scandals that would damage his reputation." Detective Martinez pulled out a folder thick with documents. "We found emails, financial transfers, even recordings of phone calls." Gabriel's hand tightened on Sophia's as they absorbed this information. "But the plan backfired," he said slowly. "Completely. Instead of weakening you, the marriage has strengthened your position. Your wife's public appearances, her involvement in the business, her obvious intelligence and integrity, it's all worked against Roberto's narrative that you're unstable or unreliable." Sophia stood up abruptly, walking to the window that overlooked the estate gardens. The rain was coming down harder now, matching her inner turmoil, so I was never free to choose my own path. Even when I thought I was escaping Carmen's control, I was still being manipulated by someone else. Sophia, Gabriel said softly, rising to follow her. "That's not how I see it." She turned to face him, tears streaming down her cheeks. "How can you say that? Our entire relationship is built on lies and manipulation. Roberto arranged our marriage, not Carmen. Every moment we've shared, every feeling I've developed for you, it's all contaminated by this deception." Detective Martinez cleared his throat diplomatically. "If I may, Senora Romano, there's more to the story." The deeper truth, Roberto's plan began to unravel almost immediately. The detective continued. "We have surveillance footage of him meeting with various people, trying to bribe them to spy on you both. But something interesting happened. Everyone he approached refused to help him." "What do you mean?" Gabriel asked. "Lena, your housekeeper was offered 50,000 euros to report on your private conversations. She not only refused, but reported the attempt to our office. Your assistant received a similar offer. Even the groundskeeping staff turned down substantial bribes to plant listening devices on the property." Sophia looked at Gabriel with surprise. "They protected us, more than that," Detective Martinez smiled. "They protected you because they could see what Roberto couldn't, that your marriage was becoming real. Alina told our investigators that she hadn't seen Gabriel this happy since before Isabella's death. Your staff recognized genuine affection. When they saw it..." Gabriel moved closer to Sophia, his gray eyes intense with emotion. "Don't you see? It doesn't matter how this started. What matters is what we've built together, what we've chosen to create despite the circumstances." Natasha's final gambit before Sophia could respond, Alina rushed into the office looking uncharacteristically flustered. "Senator Gabriel, I'm sorry to interrupt, but Natasha Volkov is here again. She's demanding to speak with both of you immediately." Gabriel's expression hardened. "Tell her we're busy. She says it's about Roberto Santos and that you'll want to hear what she has to say." Gabriel and Sophia exchanged glances. "Send her in," Gabriel said reluctantly. Natasha entered the office like a storm in designer heels. Her usual polished appearance was slightly disheveled, and there was something desperate in her ice blue eyes. "Gabriel, you have to listen to me," she said without preamble. "Roberto is planning something big for tonight. Something that will destroy your company and your marriage." "What kind of something?" Detective Martinez asked, introducing himself. Professionally, Natasha's composure cracked slightly. "Roberto has been paying me to seduce Gabriel back to create scandal and break up his marriage. But the plan has escalated beyond what I agreed to." Sophia felt a cold chill run down her spine. "What kind of escalation?" "He's hired photographers and journalists. Tonight at the charity gala you're both attending, he's planning to stage a scene. He wants to make it look like Gabriel is having an affair with me to destroy Sophia's reputation and your marriage publicly." Gabriel's hands clenched into fists. And you agreed to this? At first, yes, Natasha admitted, her usual confidence crumbling. I thought it would just be harmless flirtation. Maybe some suggestive photos. But Roberto has become obsessed with destroying you completely. He's talking about framing you for financial crimes, planting evidence, ruining everything you've built. Detective Martinez leaned forward intently. What changed your mind? Natasha looked directly at Sophia, and for the first time her expression showed genuine remorse. I saw how Gabriel looked at you the day I visited his office. I've known him for years, and I've never seen him look at anyone that way. Not even Isabella. I realized I was helping to destroy something beautiful and rare. Sophia felt her heart racing. Gabriel had looked at her with love that day, and she had been too. Hurt and confused to recognize it. What exactly is Roberto planning for tonight? Gabriel asked. We'll have photographers positioned around the hotel. I'm supposed to approach you when Sophia goes to the ladies' room, create a scene that looks intimate, maybe spill wine on your shirt so I can help clean it off. The photos will be in tomorrow's newspapers with a story about your failing marriage. The counterattack. Gabriel stood up, his business mind already working on solutions. Detective Martinez, what kind of evidence would you need to arrest Roberto for conspiracy and fraud? If Natasha is willing to wear a wire and get him to confess his plans on tape, we'd have enough for multiple charges. I'll do it, Natasha said immediately. I want to make this right. Sophia had been listening quietly, but now she spoke up with surprising firmness. No, we're going to do something better than just gathering evidence. Everyone turned to look at her. The transformation from the frightened bride of a month ago was complete. This was a woman who had found her power and wasn't afraid to use it. We're going to give Roberto exactly what he wants, she said, a small smile playing on her lips, and we're going to turn it against him. What do you mean? Gabriel asked, though he was beginning to recognize the look in his wife's eyes. It was the same expression she'd worn when facing down Roberto at their gates. Roberto wants a scandal? We'll give him one, but not the kind he's expecting. The gala that evening, the Hotel Ritz, was transformed into a glittering wonderland for Madrid's annual Children's Hospital Charity Gala. The city's elite mingled in the ballroom, diamonds catching the light from crystal chandeliers as waiters circulated with champagne and canapes. Sophia had chosen her outfit carefully, a stunning red dress that hugged her figure perfectly and made her golden brown hair shine like spun gold. Gabriel wore his finest tuxedo, and together they looked like the perfect power couple. As they made their entrance, cameras flashed and society reporters scribbled notes. The Romano marriage had been the subject of much speculation in recent weeks, and everyone was eager to assess the state of their relationship. Remember the plan? Sophia murmured as they smiled and waved to the crowd. I still think this is too risky, Gabriel replied through his own practiced smile. Trust me, she said, squeezing his hand. Sometimes the best way to defeat a predator is to make him think he's winning until it's too late. He had spotted Roberto across the room, looking distinguished in his tuxedo, but unable to hide the calculating gleam in his eyes. Natasha was there too, wearing a slinky black dress and looking nervous despite her elegant appearance. The performance the evening proceeded according to plan. Gabriel and Sophia mingled with other guests, danced together during the orchestra's set, and gave every appearance of a happily married couple. But Sophia was watching the room carefully, noting the positions of Roberto's hired photographers. At precisely 10 o'clock, she excused herself to visit the ladies' room, just as they had planned. Gabriel remained at their table, apparently engrossed. In conversation with a business associate, right on schedule, Natasha approached Gabriel's table. But instead of the seductive scene Roberto had orchestrated, she played the role Sophia had coached her in. Gabriel, she said, in a voice pitched to carry two nearby tables, I owe you an apology. Gabriel looked up with perfectly feigned surprise. Natasha, I wasn't expecting to see you here. I wanted to apologize publicly for the things I said about your marriage. I was wrong, and I was jealous. Anyone can see how much you and Sophia love each other. The trap springs the photographers. It's expecting to capture images of Gabriel and Natasha in a compromising position. Instead, found themselves documenting what appeared to be a sincere apology and reconciliation. Roberto, watching from across the room, looked increasingly agitated as his plan unraveled. That's when Sophia made her entrance. She had changed clothes in the ladies' room, switching from her elegant red dress to a simple black outfit she had hidden there earlier. More importantly, she had equipped herself with a small recording device Detective Martinez had provided. Instead of returning to Gabriel's table, she approached Roberto directly. "Senor Santos," she said sweetly, "could I have a word with you? Privately?" Roberto's eyes lit up with what he thought was opportunity. Here was Gabriel's young wife, apparently upset by seeing her husband talking intimately with his former lover. "Of course, my dear, you look distressed. Is everything all right with your marriage?" The confession Sophia led Roberto to a quiet alcove where they could speak privately, or so he thought. What he didn't realize was that Detective Martinez and two other officers were positioned nearby, listening to every word through her wire. "I saw Gabriel with that woman," Sophia said, allowing her voice to shake with apparent emotion. "They look so intimate. I'm beginning to think our marriage was a mistake." Roberto's predatory instincts took over completely. "My dear child, I tried to warn you about Gabriel's character. He's not the man you think he is." "What do you mean?" Sophia asked innocently. "Gabriel Romano is a fraud and a manipulator. Married you for business reasons, nothing more. And now he's going back to his old lover right in front of everyone?" Roberto was so focused on what he saw as Sophia's vulnerability that he didn't notice her calm, calculating expression. "How do you know so much about my husband's business?" she asked. "Because I've been investigating him for months. I have proof of financial irregularities, evidence of his unstable mental state after his first wife died, documentation of affairs with multiple women including Natasha Volkov." "That's fascinating," Sophia said, her voice losing its tremulous quality and becoming steady and strong. "Tell me more about this investigation." The tables turned. Something in Sophia's tone must have alerted Roberto to danger because his expression began to change from predatory confidence to wariness. "I think we should return to the party," he said carefully. "I don't think so." Sophia's smile was sharp as a blade. "See, Roberto? You made the same mistake that everyone else who has tried to manipulate me has made. You assumed that, because I'm young and was in a difficult situation, I must be stupid." Roberto took a step back, but found his way blocked by Detective Martinez and his officers. "Roberto Santos," the detective said formally, "you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, extortion, attempted bribery, and violation of privacy laws." As the handcuffs clicked into place, Roberto stared at Sophia with disbelief and rage. "You little witch. Do you have any idea what you've done?" "I've protected my husband and our company from a criminal conspiracy," Sophia replied calmly. "And I've made sure you'll never be able to hurt another family the way you tried to hurt mine." It's the real love story an hour later, after Roberto had been led away and the legal formalities completed. Gabriel and Sophia found themselves alone on the hotel's rooftop terrace. The lights of Madrid sparkled below them, and the night air was cool and sweet after the rain. "I can't believe you pulled that off," Gabriel said, shaking his head in amazement. "You were incredible in there." "I had a good teacher," Sophia replied. 5 years with Carmen taught me how to recognize manipulation and turn it back on the manipulator." Gabriel moved closer to her, his hands coming up to frame her face. "Sophia, there's something I need to tell you, something I should have said weeks ago." She looked up into his gray eyes, seeing the vulnerability and love there. "What is it?" "I love you. It's not because of any business arrangement, not because you're convenient or suitable, but because you're the strongest, most amazing woman I've ever known. You brought music back into my life, joy back into my home, and hope back into my heart." How tears spilled down Sophia's cheeks, but they were tears of happiness. "Gabriel, I love you too. I think I started falling in love with you that first night in the music room when you looked so lost and lonely, and I've been falling deeper every day since. When they kissed under the stars, it was nothing like their formal wedding kiss. This was passionate and real, full of promise and love, and the certainty that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together." 6 months later, Gabriel and Sophia stood in the music room that had become the heart of their home. The walls were no longer covered only with Isabella's photos, but with new pictures of their life together, Sophia at the piano, Gabriel learning to dance flamenco from his wife, both of them at charity events and business functions, building their empire together. Isabella's portrait still held a place of honor above the fireplace, but now it seemed less like a shrine and more like a blessing from someone who had loved Gabriel and wanted him to find happiness again. "Are you ready?" Gabriel asked, adjusting. his tie nervously. Sophia smoothed her simple white dress and nodded. I've been ready for months. They had decided to renew their vows, this time in a ceremony that would be about love rather than business, surrounded by people who cared about them rather than society figures seeking entertainment. Elena had decorated the music room with white roses and fairy lights. Detective Martinez was there as Gabriel's best man, having become a good friend over the months since Roberto's arrest. Even Natasha had been invited, having proved her genuine desire to make amends by testifying against Roberto and helping to expose his entire criminal network. The real wedding father, Miguel, the elderly priest who had known Isabella and blessed her marriage to Gabriel years ago, performed the ceremony. His words were simple, but profound. Marriage is not a business transaction or a legal arrangement, he said, looking directly at Gabriel and Sophia. It is a union of souls who choose to build a life together based on love, trust, and mutual respect. Today, Gabriel and Sophia, you are choosing each other not because circumstances forced you together, but because your hearts call out to one another. When they exchanged new rings, simple gold bands they had chosen together, their voices were strong and clear. I promise to love you not just in good times, but in challenges, Sophia said. I promise to be your partner in building our dreams and your comfort when dreams feel impossible. I promise to fill our home with music and laughter and hope. Promise to protect you, but never diminish you, Gabriel replied. I promise to trust your strength and support your independence. I promise to love you with everything I am for all the days of our life together. The happy ending as their friends and families celebrated around them. Gabriel and Sophia found themselves at the piano once again. But this time, they weren't alone. Elena's grandchildren were there, along with several young musicians from the scholarship program they had established with the money recovered from Roberto's criminal activities. The music room was filled with laughter and song, with the sound of multiple generations making music together. It was exactly what the room had been designed for. Not a museum to pass love, but a celebration of continuing life. Are you happy? Gabriel asked Sophia as they watched the children teach Elena how to play chopsticks on the piano. Happier than I ever imagined possible, she replied. 6 months ago, I thought love was something that happened to other people. Now I know it's something we create together every single day. Gabriel pulled her close, marveling at how perfectly she fit in his arms. I used to think losing Isabella was the end of my story. Now I know it was just the end of one chapter. You helped me start writing a new one. As the evening wound down and their guests began to leave, Gabriel and Sophia remained in the music room. Sophia played softly while Gabriel sang along in his deep baritone voice. They were creating new memories now, building their own traditions while honoring the past that had shaped them both. The scared orphan girl who had walked down the aisle in a marriage of convenience was gone forever. In her place was a confident woman who had found her voice, her strength, and her true love. And the grieving widower who had buried his heart with his first wife had learned that the human heart has room for both memory and new love.
Ow.
Both honoring the past and embracing the future. Their love story had begun with tears and fear, but it was ending with laughter and promise. Sometimes the most beautiful things grow from the most unlikely soil. And sometimes the greatest love stories begin with the words, I don't want to marry you. But they had learned that what matters isn't how love begins. It's what you choose to build with it once you find it. And Gabriel and Sophia Romano had built something beautiful, something lasting, something that would fill their home with music and joy for all the years to come. The end.